Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ike Love. I'm creator and author of the blog, The Viable Alternative, which is an inspirational blog where I share the wisdom and insights gained along my path of becoming a greater, stronger version of myself. And if you want to read more about these insights, go click on the word description under the window and you'll see the link www.theviablealternative.com. So today I wanted to talk about why is it so hard for us to change, and go into reasons why. And this is for you people, those of you or those of us, because I've been in that boat, who earnestly want to make a change in your lives. Maybe you have a bad temper, maybe you have some type of addiction, maybe you just think, or you've been just a general douchebag. No judgment, I've been one too. Maybe you have a problem with sabotaging your relationships. Maybe you just procrastinate too much, and you just basically do a litany of things, or that lead to a life that have led to a life that you're not satisfied with, or you just think a certain way, certain negative thoughts, and you just can't seem to change them to produce a better or create a better life. And you're not one of those people who are in the dark that think you're perfect and everything is fine. You actually know your issues. You know your issues, and you have a sincere, genuine desire to go and correct them, but you just can't. And you may read a ton of self-improvement books. You've been to a ton of seminars, and nothing you've ever done seems to have helped or been successful. I know, because I was like that. From 2000 to 2009, I was in I just was utterly stagnated, and I had a whole bunch of negative thoughts, and I just couldn't change them. And I was stifled. I was unconfident. I was very insecure. I was very stiff, and I just tried a bunch of different things to change, and I really physically could not change, and it was frustrating. It felt like I was just like in a straitjacket and not able to get out. And so, first off, I just want to assure you that you're not crazy. You're not a loser, and there is hope for you. There are wisdoms and insights that I'm about to share with you that will shine light in the situation of why you can't seem to improve. And the first reason why it's so difficult for us to change is that many of us don't realize that we're being run or lived through in certain situations by our wounded inner child or a false self. And what in the heck does that mean? Well, let me just start from the top. Several years ago, I read this book by, years and years ago, by Tony Robbins called Awaken the Giant Within. And there was a specific chapter on beliefs. And we all know beliefs determine our lives and our future. If you believe you're a loser, you're going to behave like a loser. You're going to do and make things that are in concordance with your self-perception. So, I had a lot of negative beliefs that were leading me, or giving me the life that I had that I wasn't satisfied with. So I was reading this book on how to change them. And this book came upon, in this chapter, they had a series of questions to ask ourselves to change our beliefs. One of them was, the first question that they asked was, what benefit would it be to us to change the belief? And of course, I had a bunch of questions that would be suitable for me to change the belief. Number one was, be more successful in life, be more happy, be more confident, have a more successful dating life. So, these were reasons that I answered or gave, or answers that I had given that were totally logical as to why I wanted to change the belief. The second question it asked was, what is likely to happen if I were to continue to hold on to these beliefs? And obviously, one of the answers was this sucky life that I was living. So, very logical answers as to why I'd want to change the belief. But here's the thing. I still couldn't freaking change. Despite the fact that I answered these very perfectly logical questions about why I should change, I still felt compelled to engage in the same behavior that was leading me down the path that I wasn't happy with. And why is that? Because I didn't realize that underneath all that, I was being run by my 5-year-old self, 4-year-old self, my wounded inner child. And again, what does this all mean? Well, in life, from childhood, we all went through some type of trauma that's caused by either abandonment, abuse, or neglect. And we may not have actually been abandoned, abused, and neglected, but think about it like this: no matter how perfect our parents are or were, or how good our parents were, function they were, and no matter how idyllic our childhoods were, on some level or another, we went through some type of wounding. Why or how? Well, because as kids, we were completely immature and young, and kids tend to personalize everything. And also, kids kind of are totally dependent on our parents for our life or death. So given our immaturity and our perception of the world, personalizing everything, and our complete dependence on our parents, our vulnerability, and on top of the fact that our parents, no matter how good they weren't perfect. Somewhere along the line, we had something happen to us that we interpreted as either abandonment, abuse, or neglect, hence the wound. So now when we have this wound, we, as a mechanism, our wounded inner child, we have a wounded inner child, and as a mechanism, our defense mechanism, we put up a false self. And now this false self, to defend against this wound, may have complete outbursts of anger, or it may draw into itself and be very very reclusive, or become overly pleasing to people, or may put up a very tough exterior of being, quote unquote, as I said earlier, a douchebag, but really that's just a defense mechanism to the wound. And there's a litany of things. So what happens now in life, we're walking through life as an adult, and somehow or another, through some type of internal stimulus of whether someone's saying something or something happening to us, a similar situation, something happens that triggers the wound. And so what happens when the wound is triggered? We revert now back to that 5-year-old wounded child, or 4-year-old or 3-year-old. We revert back to that. So as far as we are concerned now, we're not being present to the world we're living now, the sights, the smells, the sounds. We're seeing that through the eyes of a 5-year-old. And the 5-year-old now is holding on to this dear behavior as a survival tactic. So here I was at the age, I don't know how old I was back then when I was reading this damn book or answering these questions. Here I was using these logical things. Oh, you can have a nice car, you have a nice house, you have a nice car. I mean, a nice, a beautiful girlfriend, or, you're going to be successful. I was telling myself these things, and these are logical answers. They made sense. If I change these beliefs, this is what the life I was going to have. But I didn't realize I was talking to a 4-year-old, a wounded 4-year-old who didn't care about any of these things. The 4-year-old was just worried about surviving. It was wounded, living in the house of his parents, totally dependent on the life and death, life and death was the hand of his parents. It didn't give a damn about a car. What does a 4-year-old care about having a nice car? It cared about surviving. So when we are now an adult and we feel compelled to do a certain behavior, and we know we logically shouldn't be doing it, but we're doing it anyway, that's because we're now living through our 5-year-old self. And the 5-year-old self feels compelled to do this exact behavior because it's a means of survival. So now, to change the behavior, we have to stop thinking about ourselves as our adults, and contact now this wounded child, this false self that's engaged in this behavior, and provide the nurturing that this child needs so that it doesn't feel compelled to do the behavior it was once compelled to do. And that will most likely require some type of therapy or counseling. There's a phrase that says to overcome a problem, we have to have a different mindset than with which it was created. And I think that is not necessarily true. We cannot use our adult minds to, in certain ways, we cannot use our adult minds to reason with a wounded child. We have to get to the level of a wounded child and find out its needs, so that it doesn't feel the need to have the survival tactic as that is an explanation for this behavior that we're engaging in. So that's the first reason, and hope that helps why we feel so compelled to do certain things. The second reason now is that we don't realize that we're acting, or we don't realize that we are addicted to something, that this behavior that we're doing is some type of addiction meant to cover some type of pain. And what do I mean? Well, going back to my first example in life, we have a whole bunch of different emotional wounds from traumas that we've dealt with, emotional wounds of situations that we had been in which hurt us emotionally, And because we didn't properly heal, the pain is still living inside our bodies. And so we may not be consciously aware of this pain, but at an unconscious level, we feel this pain. And what we do, we engage in different behaviors to numb this pain. Kind of like when we take an aspirin. We take an aspirin so that when we have a headache, we take an aspirin to numb the pain that we're feeling. Well, on an emotional level, we engage in different behaviors to numb the pain that we're feeling, the emotional pain that we're feeling that's inside our bodies. For instance, now, drug addicts. A lot of drug addicts are addicted to drugs because the drugs are a way for them to escape the pain that they're feeling, the emotional pain. This is why I am against jailing non-violent drug offenders, because really they're just victims and they have they're dealing with pain. And really, I think the justice system needs to change so that these people can get psychological help to heal their wounds rather than just throw them in jail. But drugs is just one poison that people pick. There's a multitude of things that people do to escape from their pain. Shopping, overeating, over-exercising, jumping from relationship to relationship, alcoholism. Sometimes people do extreme sports, like extreme activities, so that that rush they feel can be an escape to the pain that they're harboring. Pick your poison. Whatever you consistently feel a need to do to escape your pain, you're addicted to that thing. It's an addiction. And so the key is to heal the pain so that you no longer feel compelled to do things to mask the pain. I know a friend of mine, I'm going to be very vague in this, so not to put all their business out there, but I know a friend of mine who suffered, completely horrible childhood trauma as a child. And so as an adult, this person found himself as an alcoholic. And towards the last 5-6 years, they made earnest efforts into getting help for their alcoholism, substance abuse. So they went to AA, or he went to AA, and he also had a drug counselor eventually. But he kept on falling off the wagon, getting back on the wagon, falling off, getting back on. But something interesting happened. When he was on the wagon and was abstinent from alcohol, he started exercising a lot, like going to the gym like 20 times a week. And this drug counselor, in her profound wisdom, said, "Oh, you're now exercising instead of doing alcohol. You're exercising at an extreme level. You have trauma. You need a trauma specialist." So she sent my friend to a trauma specialist, which, was a therapist, but, specialized in trauma. And it was the first time in his life that he actually addressed the trauma he'd been through in childhood. And by addressing the pain and healing from the pain, he no longer felt the need to abuse alcohol. And very interestingly enough, Alcoholics Anonymous, they teach complete abstinence from alcohol. But this person now can go have a drink. They can totally have a drink and feel no need to drink again after that, because they dealt with the pain. And there are other people in his AA group that was like, "Oh, what you're doing is wrong. You shouldn't drink. It's dangerous." But like, no, but I don't feel a need to go and binge drink like I did before. My pain is healed, so I can just have a drink now. And this person said, "Yeah, I drank the other day. I don't feel the need to have it again." So the reason why, we have such a difficult time to changing is that we don't realize that we see our behavior that we're doing as a way to mask the pain, and we're not aware of it. So when we're now going to do such an activity, we're trying to logically fight against it, but an emotional level that we're not aware of, we need this behavior to mask this pain. That's why it was so difficult for us to change, because we're not dealing directly with the pain. So now we have to deal with the pain in order to change our behavior. Third reason why we have a difficult time in changing is because we are unaware of the emotional and mental impulses that are driving us to do this behavior that's given us the life that's making our lives a living hell, or just making it completely, utterly intolerable. And let me just give you a scenario. Imagine being in a pitch black room, and you cannot see. And there are people who are punching you from all different directions. And because they can see you, but you cannot see them, you can't block, you can't defend yourself. You're just being hit by all sides. Now, in this dark room, you can have every single knowledge of go and learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Follow me, indulge me here. You can learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or become a 20th degree black belt in Shotokan or whatever, or Taekwondo. It doesn't matter what you know. As long as you cannot see who's hitting you or from the direction being hit, you cannot see to defend yourself. So what are these skills? They're nothing. They're useless. In this scenario, it's the same thing. Your wounds can see you, but you may not be able to see, or your impulse, whatever, can see you, but you cannot or not aware of these impulses that you driving you to action. To illustrate a little further, so take my case, for instance, now. In my years that I was finding so difficult to change, I was aware of the negative thoughts. You're stupid, you're an idiot, blah, 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 this and that. But so I'd hear these negative thoughts, and I still, like a cow going to slaughter, I still would follow them and believe them, even though I knew it wasn't right to believe them and indulge them. I will follow down that same path that I knew was giving me the same life that I hated. But as I started going to therapy and I started uncovering and naming these negative thoughts, I noticed something. That beneath the negative thoughts, there was this quiet voice that was telling me, I think you really should just do it. You just do it. You really should just do it. Just come on now already, You've been positive for a while, but just go back in that direction again. It's just right that you do that. And after I heard this thought, I'd feel this huge amount of guilt if I didn't go in that direction. So when I was unaware, I would hear a negative thought and I will follow down its line because I did not hear this voice that would tell me, and I wasn't aware to the guilt I felt for not doing it. So each and every time when I knew it was wrong for me to follow down that path, I would do it anyway because of this unconscious guilt I felt, and the voice that would tell me, just do it already. You should really just do it. And the voice wasn't negative per se. It was very persuasive. It was very soft. It wasn't as apparent as the loud voices here, and it wasn't as loud. But it was just this soft negative voice this soft voice that would tell me to go down the same direction. And so, I had to. When I became aware of that was when I was able now to be like, oh my gosh. No wonder I was so oblivious to his voice. It didn't sound negative per se, and it led back to my childhood. As a child, when I was being, or my father would be doing, receiving his emotional abuse from him, I wanted to be the good little boy and have his approval. So I felt guilty for not trying to please him. There was guilt, and also the voices or whatever these voices were a creation, a defense mechanism to his emotional abuse. And so years later, this voice telling me, oh, you really just should do it. Was that voice created to please my father? And the guilt that came from it was out of me not pleasing my father, because I was in his household. And you want your parents' approval. You're supposed to listen to them and obey them. So this is what it came out of. So many times when you're not hearing this damn negative voice in your head, or you feel compelled to tear apart your house again in a fit of anger or sabotage your relationship, you're not aware of these impulses that are telling you to do such. There's some type of emotional impulse you're feeling that you're not aware of that you just immediately respond to, or there's some type of thought that's going on in your head that you're not listening to. That's not a negative thought per se. It's not an apparent negative thought, but it's a thought that's leading you down that direction. So start to pay more attention, become more self-aware to these little impulses that you're receiving. They're so subtle. They're very subtle. That's why they're so hard to detect. But I guarantee you, if you find them out, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, no wonder I felt so compelled to do A, B, C, and D. That's been ruining my freaking life. It's because, these things were controlling my life. And, every single time you're just like, oh boy, here it goes again. I'm doing this thing where I'm not supposed to do it, So hope that helps. And the last reason, and again, I got to really hurry up because I don't want this video to go too long. Another reason why we find it so difficult to change, because we're changed for other people and not ourselves. And for me, I when I first decided to change, it was out of a huge amount of guilt of, being the way I was around my family, whatever. And so when I was starting to change, or trying to change by reading all these books, I was looking for approval from my family, not approval from myself. And things started to change when I started going through therapy. Well, actually, when I started my spiritual cleansing, it actually started making me change in 2009. And then, the therapy I went through started in 2014. I actually physically started to experience myself in a different way. I started experiencing myself differently. And that's when I knew that I was really changing. You're going to notice here when you change, when you start to have a different experience of yourself. And nobody can ever tell you that. Nobody can tell you, oh, you suck, you haven't changed. You're not going to care about their opinion, because you are physically experiencing yourself changing. You experience yourself in a different way. So, that concrete experience of you feeling yourself differently, you changing, you're not going to need anybody's outside approval. You're not going to be encumbered by whether they're watching you change or noticing you changing, or you're not going to feel that resentment. You're going to be doing it for yourself instead of other people. So again, stop the nonsense of trying to change for other people and change for yourself, and it definitely will make a huge difference in life. So hope all this helps to tie everything up. There is hope. You're not hopeless. Just because you haven't changed the way you wish you have or think you should have, it's just because you haven't had the proper enlightenment or tools or wisdom to give you the change that you so earnestly want in your life. And I'll tell you here, for a guy who's been in your shoes, I know you want to change. I know that you have a sincere, earnest desire to change and become a better person. And you're not a bad person for not changing yet. You just haven't had the proper tools or wisdom or insight. So I hope this helps. If you like this video, please click on like and also subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you want to read more on our site, again, go to www.theviablealternative.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at TheViableAlt. Take care, God bless, and keep the faith. Peace.